So this is an U-Bahn train. Essentially your subway. So I really like pictures like this because it shows essentially where you are and in relation to where I currently am. And you can see this whole area has been rebuilt, except for obviously the sort of the walls behind me. This essentially was the checkpoint Charlie area. So you can see down the road there the picture of theoretically an American in uniform. On the opposite side is the same lad, I think, actually in a Russian uniform. This area, you know, it's interesting. I wanted to visit it just because of, actually before I go there, a Trabant going by. That's epic. You know, wanted to come here because, you know, hey, it's a tourist attraction, you know, it's something interesting, it's something that, you know, as a child of the 80s, 70s, 60s, you would have seen on television. And, you know, just to see it, right? Well, there's a museum here, and you can see there are walls of sort of descriptions of the history of the Berlin Wall, people who tried crossing and things like that. And it's those stories that you and I'm pretty verklempt. The stories of those people that got through, and the stories of those who didn't. And it's the story of the people that matter. What happened to them, what's happened since the fall, and the rebuilding that Berlin's been through. So quite amazing city, quite an amazing story, for sure. Okay, so I'm back on the American side. You can sort of see the replica of the actual checkpoint, and you can see the picture of the uniformed Russian official, if you will, in air quotes. You know, I kind of joked, not publicly, but to some family members, taking a picture of the sign saying you're now leaving the U.S. sector, and you know, I kind of joked that, you know, with all the immigration issues I've had trying to get into the United States with my L1, you know, joking that, you know, sure, yeah, thank God I'm getting out of the American sector. But, you know, I realize that disrespects the people that lost their lives, that, you know, truly needed to get into the Allied territories, you know, for freedom, you know, and I'm really thankful that there was this particular sort of museum and the stories taken, because, again, as I said, that's what really matters. So, something happier that I wanted to share with you is my love of retro sport. I learned about these in Frankfurt, Germany, when I worked there in 95 and 96, and all right, I was already eating 2 chocolate bars a day when I was living in the UK, and yeah, I was eating a lot of these. You know, they're awesome. So if you can find them around the world, which I know you can, because they're available in Canada now, definitely try one. One of the things that you often see in Berlin, especially related to the wall, and almost any space that almost looks like it's put up some form of barrier that's solid, is you'll see a lot of graffiti. And, you know, you can dismiss graffiti as being not art, etc. My take on it has always been that it's about protest, speaking up, and communicating a message. And it's been interesting looking at all the graffiti that is all over Berlin, um, and wondering what are some of the messages and things like that. So definitely a different take on what graffiti actually means and what it's always meant. It's almost up there. I would say almost like rap music. A lot of people dismiss rap music for not being music and things like that. When if you listen to works like NWA, especially what they were doing in the late '80s, early '90s, the messages that they were giving. So graffiti has always been important in Berlin and will always be important in the city, and I think will always be important in any anywhere where there's graffiti. So just walking towards Topography of Terror, and I've stumbled on Trabi World, which is everything to do with the Trabant. You can actually drive one. Apparently they've made them roadworthy, so that would be an interesting thing for me to do next time I'm in Berlin, and I will be back. So I've chosen to end my trip to Berlin at the Topography of Terror. Just seems to be the theme of the day. You can see a massive portion of the Berlin Wall, and there's an outside exhibit on the terrors of the Nazi regime here in Germany. And there's an amazing information center. It's free to go to. It talks about right now they have to have an exhibit on the SS, the Gestapo, and also those that worked for the government. So the public employees that worked for the government at the time, and just some of the policies and such. Definitely worth visiting. It's given me some very good food for thought, especially with where the world's at today. And I'm glad that such an exhibit exists, and people can learn and hopefully learn lessons from this to make the world a better place. Walking along here and just sort of looking at this wall that is right next to me kind of gives a sense of just how bleak the times were when the wall was up. I mean, obviously you've got a live street down here, etc. Honestly, I am guessing, based on the lines of the road here, wondering if that's possibly where the other wall was. But it's just amazing how stark, and no words to really describe it. Kind of answers the question. So we've got here the story of a family that escaped the East through the buildings right here next to me, and managed to create a mast, or attach to a mast, some form of cable that got them over the wall. And you can see the preparations that they made, pushing their son across, and the son making it. And the dad just barely making it. Just incredible. The U-Bahn behind me. So I decided to just come up one stop. I didn't get pictures inside, but you can definitely tell the older Eastern architecture in the U-Bahn versus the Western. You know, and just walking in and going through, you know, talking to Joe yesterday, is this an Eastern subway, or are we in the East versus the West? Because I've always had an interest in subway architecture and design from the former USSR. You know, there's some really ornate subway stations I would love to see in Moscow if you know, if I ever choose to go there, on my bucket list, but not currently willing to go there at this point with the government that's in. But yeah, it's something I would love to see and do. So, stark contrast to what you would see in the pictures in this particular area. Not a lot of people out, depending on what time those pictures were taken at, but I can't imagine, you know, lots of people were congregating in this particular area. You know, so this is the Brandenburg Gate. If you see the German word TOR, that essentially means gate. It's majestic, and what this signified was the road from Berlin to Brandenburg State and Brandenburg City. So quite a majestic gate to go through in those days. And behind me you can see the TV tower. I'm not even going to try and pronounce what the actual name of the television tower is in German, because I will massacre it. I think one of the things that I really would like to do is I've always said that I need to learn Spanish, and I do need to learn Spanish, but I have to admit, I really would love to learn German. Just totally would. It's such it's a language I love hearing. And anyway, so that's Brandenburg Gate. Let's walk through, and I've got some neat stuff to show. The Brandenburg Gate was actually inside the East, the former East, and it was not the demarcating line between East and West. So where the wall was right here, that line right there. So you can see all throughout Berlin, the line that's right there is essentially a dividing line on wall. So there were two walls, western side, the eastern side, and the DMZ. Well, I said DMZ. It's the only time I say Z. Otherwise, Z. There's a funny story I have about my great uncle telling me off because I chose to say Z one time. Anyway, and then in the middle, essentially no man's land, the DMZ, DMZ. Anyway, I've already said that. So yeah, people could certainly see the Brandenburg Gate, but you certainly could walk under it the way I just did. And this whole area has changed, considerably changed.